There are 4 reasons why Chainsaw Man Season 1 seriously underperformed. Manabu Otsuka, the CEO of Mappa, recently admitted that the Chainsaw Man anime did not have the same level of impact as the studio was hoping for. This is following the release of Jujutsu Kaisen, which was a massive success, and which even he admits did much better. Unfortunately, this is clearly backed up by the numbers. JJK sold almost 15,000 Blu-ray copies in its first week, whereas Chainsaw Man only sold over 1,000 copies. And when you look at the manga, JJK's sales more than double following the release of Season 1, where in 2023, Chainsaw Man has only topped JJK in sales by about 1 million. Definitely a lot of copies, but not that much when you consider that JJK did 4 times the sales of Chainsaw Man back in 2022. This is a major topic of discussion considering everyone loves the Chainsaw Man anime, and it was one of the most popular anime in the fall season. Naturally, people want to know why it didn't really sell anything even though it seemed to be doing really well. In response, I'd like to offer 4 theories that seem to explain why Chainsaw Man didn't meet expectations. Some of the reasoning behind these theories will mesh, but there's 4 distinct explanations for why this happened. One of these is my own. One comes from the CEO of Mappa, and the other 2, while made by just about everyone, were recently shared by the Trash Taste podcast. So let's start there, considering everyone loves what Trash Taste has to say all the time. They're never divisive, and everyone always respects their opinions. The first of the 2 theories is one I see the most, claiming that Season 1's lack of success can be attributed to its short length. Here we have Garnt claiming, and the others later agreeing, that part of why Chainsaw Man wasn't as successful is because it was only 12 episodes. And I agree with what they're generally saying, just not for the reason they are. So in the video, they basically claim that long-running shonen are special in that they need more time to catch on, JJK being the obvious example since it did really well and was 2 cores. They then take this idea further by saying that 12 episodes isn't a long enough time to be impactful, pointing to the newer seasons of AOT. I think everyone can agree that this generally makes sense. 12 episodes is a short window, especially for shonen manga, which tend to take their time building their stories. But this idea that 2 cores magically fixes that problem is an overbroad generalization. So for example, they themselves point to Demon Slayer and say it took about 18 episodes to get into it. Okay, first of all, Demon Slayer had 26 episodes, which is 2 more than usual. And let me just say, if it takes you 18 episodes to even remotely enjoy a show, you're either missing something that's already there, or the show just isn't that good. My point being that even being 26 episodes long, most people don't get that excited over the first season of Demon Slayer. And here's another example, My Hero Season 1. People liked it when it came out, but it wasn't really that popular, at least not right away. Then the All Might vs. Nomu fight happened and a lot more people started getting into it. That was 12 episodes into a 13 episode season. It did in 1 core what Demon Slayer took 18 episodes to do. What I'm getting at is this. There is no magic number. You can have a long season that really fleshes out its story, and a shorter season where a ton happens in a short amount of time. It's all about how you package content and budget time. So when people say that Chainsaw Man flopped because it was only 12 episodes, I disagree in the sense that 12 episodes is too short per se. There is a lot that happens in Season 1. Just because it didn't have the same impact as JJK doesn't mean it's not impactful. It was still one of the most popular anime of the fall season. Now, at the same time, I agree that 12 episodes kind of killed Season 1 in the sense that 2 cores would have been the better choice. Like I said, 2 cores doesn't magically fix things, but in the case of Chainsaw Man, adding the next arc would have solved a lot of its other problems. As you will see, there's some overlap into the other theories, so for now I'll just say this. Adding another core would mean we would have had the arc where Denji meets Reze, and this arc has a lot more romance and fights that are much more intense. Had this been adapted, I think Chainsaw Man would have had stronger viral moments like we've seen with Demon Slayer and JJK. But like I said, we'll get into why that is later in the video. So for now, that's one theory. Chainsaw Man wasn't exactly too short, but it was definitely hurt by where it decided to end. Now, the next theory is similar, but it's my own take on it. But before I share it, make sure to like the video if you're enjoying it so far. It's the easiest way to support the channel, and it helps spread the video to other viewers like you. Now, the second theory, my theory, is that Season 1's lack of success was partly due to timing. Part of why Chainsaw Man seems like a failure is because it didn't do as well as JJK. Okay, well, did you see the competition JJK had? Virtually nothing. It had Haikyuu, which is in a world of its own, Moriarty the Patriot, Talentless Nana, and Yashahime. You can even throw in Fire Force since it was still running over from the summer season. I'm sorry, but even as a Fire Force fan, none of these even had a chance against JJK. That would be like if the Lakers only played the Pistons, the Spurs, and the Hornets all season and everyone said they played a great season. Of course they did, look at their competition! Meanwhile, Chainsaw Man was up against Bleach, Mob Psycho, My Hero, Bocchi the Rock, and Spy Family, arguably the biggest anime in the current market. Even if Chainsaw Man was trending every single episode, it was never going to stand out as much as JJK did in a season littered with this much content. Not to say they made Chainsaw Man look bad by comparison, but when there's this much to watch, it's hard to go back and be like, no, this anime definitely dominated. So while I don't think it was a primary reason, I think it was unavoidable that Chainsaw Man was never going to be as impactful as JJK when Chainsaw Man had so much more to compete with. Why Mappa chose that season, I'm not sure, but it's probably not the kind of thing they could have seen coming. But there is something they did that probably could have been avoided, which brings us to the third theory, one that is spelled out in black and white by the CEO of Mappa, but nobody really talks about. In that same interview, Otsuka admits that Mappa provided the entire investment for funding Chainsaw Man's production. And if you know anything about business, you know that's a big no-no. In business, there's generally two reasons you get other investors to help fund your project. Obviously, because it pools the risk so everyone loses less money, but the other reason being that getting another investor in means getting access to their expertise and resources. This is why people try so hard to make deals on Shark Tank. Yes, they want the money, but being in business with people like Mark Cuban or Kevin O'Leary means getting help with someone who does this kind of thing on a much bigger scale, has way more to work with, and has done this sort of thing thousands of times. Mappa, while popular, is a relatively small studio. Did Chainsaw Man Season 1 come out awesome? Yes, but they also spent all of their money and worked by themselves. That means they had less money for marketing and less money to publish and distribute DVD and Blu-ray copies. That's also less money to fund a potential movie. If they had a larger studio invest, not only would they have had more money to work with, but they could have had that studio's marketing streams and sold more copies. Again, this is like the timing thing. This might have been out of Mappa's control. I mean, I can see why big companies might not want to risk their money on a show like Chainsaw Man, but regardless of why they did it, it definitely hurt them in the end. They got investors on JJK and they killed it there. They funded Chainsaw Man all by themselves, and that clearly hurt their ability to sell copies and even fund a movie. Which in hindsight seems like an even bigger mistake when you consider the marketability of Chainsaw Man. And this is the last theory we're going to get into. We touched on this earlier, but this is basically the idea that Chainsaw Man wasn't as impactful because it wasn't as marketable. In other words, it didn't have the kind of content to reach a wider audience. And this is the other theory that Trash Taste brought up in their discussion. This is one that I pretty much thought of instantly when comparing Chainsaw Man and JJK. In their discussion, the group points out how Chainsaw Man is very weird and very sexual. Connor, who went off in this discussion by the way, put it perfectly when he said that Chainsaw Man is a bit too much for a general audience. Even for older fans and hardcore anime fans, Chainsaw Man is a lot. Take that and apply it to younger fans, especially kids, and it just doesn't work. Either they don't get what's going on, they're grossed out or offended by it, or they do like it but their parents won't let them watch it. Meanwhile, as violent as it is, JJK violence isn't nearly as explicit as Chainsaw Man violence. There's very little sexual themes in JJK Season 1 besides the Jennifer Lawrence bit, which is harmless, and JJK just follows the more traditional shonen battle series route. Whereas with Chainsaw Man, you could binge the whole manga and still be like, what the F did I just read? All of that adds together to create a show that many people enjoy, but isn't as accessible as something like JJK. It's too explicit and it's got too much going on for someone who just wants to watch a show with cool characters and cool fights. And on that note, that's another thing about marketing Chainsaw Man. Whenever you see an anime go viral, it's for one of two reasons. Either a meme, like JoJo's, or because of animation. And while the memes definitely go viral, they don't seem to be quite as impactful as the animation bits. So for example, that bit where Bocchi glitches out still gets shared around. The Gojo's eye thing, not as much. But which series is more popular? JJK. The simple reason being that people like watching cool characters fight each other. So when you combine that with god-tier animation, it's very hard not to watch it. And this is where we can kind of see what went wrong with Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man is a meme machine, but when you look at its fights in Season 1, they didn't have the same kind of reach as JJK. The only big fights happen towards the end. Those fights are intense and they're animated very well, but they're not really a flex. They're not really as flashy as Gojo vs. Jogo, or Tanjiro vs. Rui, which is fine, but when Mappa's goal is for Chainsaw Man to be as big as JJK, they gotta do the same thing. And those flashy fights happen right in the next arc, which is where we can see how these 4 theories come together. The lack of investors hurt their ability to market the anime, the timing hurt their ability to market Chainsaw Man against the competition, where they ended the season hurt their ability to make a bigger impact, and that content they adapted in that window of time naturally wasn't as marketable. None of these things on their own would have been that bad, but these all worked together to make the problem worse as a whole. Which brings us back to the topic of this discussion. Why did Chainsaw Man fail to hit its goals? Well, some of it, like timing, was out of Mappa's control, but some of it seems to have been the result of poor choices that were very controllable. At the end of the day, it wasn't any one reason, but clearly the combination of multiple factors that worked against it. But having explained all 4 theories, now I'd like to hear what you think. What do you think hurt Chainsaw Man? Do you think any of these theories hurt Chainsaw Man more than the others? Share your thoughts and see what everyone else has to say down in the comments. I'll pick my favorite and share it as comment of the week on my community tab. And if you'd like another Chainsaw Man discussion like this one, then check out my recent video on Part 2. In that video, I explain why Part 2 isn't that different from Part 1. You can find that video in the playlist linked right here. Until then, thank you for watching, and I hope to hear from you soon.